Welcome back, y'all. This is the Pitre podcast. I know you guys are wondering last week where the episode was, or technically this week where the episode was. No, actually, no. Technically, this is coming out next Monday, so last week would be. Yeah, anyway, we're talking freaking pretenses here, but yeah, it was a holiday weekend for those of you who are not located in America. So it was July 4th, where we celebrate primarily becoming free, becoming our own sovereignty nation, and telling the British to go fuck themselves with a 2% T-tax. And now we are run by Israel. So yeah, things just come full circle here. But yeah, it was a holiday weekend for me, so I spent some time with family. So I went upstate to upstate New York, chilled with my fam, chilled with my little sister. Parents live by a lake, so I was just swimming in that lake, which swimming in lakes, man, it's a little weird, I'm not gonna lie. I prefer swimming in the ocean. Swimming in the ocean is easier because with all the salt water, you're naturally more buoyant. So swimming, fucking treading water, trying to stay afloat, it's a lot easier in salt water than it is on a lake, which I forgot. So as I was swimming through the lake and shit and treading water, stay afloat, it was hard, man. I got tired. And I'm not a cardio daddy by any means. As you can see, I'm a big fuck. So it was difficult, man. I was getting exhausted, just swimming and trying to tread water for a couple minutes. Not only that, but lakes are warm. I think swimming in warm water is always a little weird to me because, of course, born and raised in the Northeast, where if you go to a pool, if you go to the beach, the water is always extremely cold. It's like a given, essentially. So, yeah, so swimming in lukewarm water just feels a little weird. Kind of feels like you're swimming in pee. But not only that, lake water is always very murky. Lake water is always especially during the summer months where the algae starts to bloom and stuff, it's green, essentially. So it's I can't see what's under me, essentially. So it's really weird. But it was fun, man. I had a great time. I was swimming in the lake nonstop. Went hiking, which was pretty cool. It was freaking hot as fuck up there too. And yeah, just enjoyed time with family, basically. But I'm not here to talk about July 4th for my weekend. I'm talking about, is Trump tripping? So I'm going to be evaluating Trump's first, it's not even a year of his presidency. It's basically only 7 months of his presidency so far. And if he's bugging, and the short answer is yes, he is 100% bugging the fuck out, man. His first presidency was relatively calm and chill. Yeah, there were some issues immigration was always an issue with the Trump administration. They were always big on anti-immigration, keeping America as white as humanly possible. That was always their thing. They were always big on big business. So tax cuts for the rich and tax cuts for corporations and that kind of stuff. They were always about that. That's not a surprise. I knew that was going to be the case going into his second term as president. But I think he just did a 180 into authoritarianism, kind of, not full-blown authoritarianism, but we're getting there, man. It's less than a year into his presidency, and he's bugging the fuck out in a lot of ways, which we're going to go into specific ways and how he's bugging the fuck out. But I think no one's happy with his presidency right now. I'm going to be honest with you. Even people who were pro-Trump, who were gung-ho about Trump becoming president yet again, I think even a lot of that base is not happy with how Trump is currently running the United States. Definitely the people who are more libertarian are definitely not happy with Trump. People who were more conservative, I would say more middle-leaning, wasn't exactly liberal, wasn't exactly conservative, but they had to pick a choice. They were probably leaning more conservative. Those people are definitely not happy with Trump. I think the only people who are truly happy with Trump are those who are in the billionaire or millionaire class and those who are just, I don't know, just bought into the propaganda a little too hard and think he's doing amazing things when in reality he's really not. But the first topic that I want to talk about and how he's fucking bugging is immigration, right? Because that's the thing that's on everyone's mind right now, is the freshest thing that's out there as far as topic of discussion goes. So immigration, we can't really talk about immigration in America without talking about the administration's immigration policy prior to Donald Trump. So we had Biden, right? Senile Biden. He basically was just like, yo, we're going to let everyone in. That was kind of like his game plan as far as immigration was. It was literally, let's let everyone in. Let's not vet anyone. Let anyone cross the border. And let's just let millions of people in and just let them be Americans, essentially. Let them come into America and benefit from America. And, of course, a lot of these people were coming through from Texas, which is on the border of the United States and Mexico. Texas governor, I forgot who it was at the time, I'm going to be honest with you, but he's like, yo, we can't have this. Like, Texas is a big place, and yes, technically, if you really want to get down to like geography and like the infrastructure and what can be available in Texas, you can house all those people in Texas. But as far as the current infrastructure and how it goes now, it's going to be hard for any state, no matter how big of the state, to house 10 million people, which is approximately the amount of people that crossed the border from Mexico. It wasn't just Mexicans too. A lot of people have a big misconception of the people who are crossing the border initially during the Biden administration. They think they were just Mexicans. There's a bunch of Mexicans coming over. That's not the case. Of course, all those people were primarily Hispanic, but a lot of people within different Hispanic Latin countries were crossing the border. So, of course, you had Mexicans crossing the border. You had people from El Salvador. You had people from Honduras. You had people from Colombia. You had people from Venezuela. You even had freaking Chinese people who flew into Latin America who pay top dollar to basically the cartels to get like a better passage into America. So it's even different demographics who are not Hispanic at all is crossing that border essentially. But basically, Mexico just had a policy of like, we're just putting our hands up. We're not going to really enforce this. If they want to do it, fuck it, they could do it, essentially. That was like their kind of mindset. They weren't really trying to stop people from crossing the border. It was on the America side that we were stopping people from crossing the border historically. But the Biden administration kind of did away with that. He was like, yo, anyone can come in. Like, doesn't matter who you are, what your background is, what experiences or skill sets you have. If you have a criminal record, come one, come all. And of course, going back to Texas didn't have the infrastructure to house all those people at once, right? So they were like, yo, we're not doing this. We've been dealing with this shit for fucking decades. Like, yo, if you want, and they're, of course, a red state, so they're going to be naturally against the policies of our liberal, blue-leaning Democratic president at the time. So he's like, yo, we're not doing this. If you guys want to do this, cool. They can't be in Texas, though. So one of you blue states better take these motherfuckers. New York City, which I'm born and raised in New York, and I was living in New York City at the time, they were like, yo, we'll take them. California was like, yo, we'll take them. A few other states were just like, yo, we will take them. But it was primarily New York City and California. So a bunch of these immigrants who crossed the border were bused or flown to New York City, to California, where those cities basically house these people, whether it be through, hotels or like whatever the case may be and how they house them. But of course, with that many people coming over, and literally thousands of people were being bused to these sanctuary cities every single day. Thousands of people every single day. You can't sustain that. That's not necessarily sustainable. You need a better game plan, Because at that point, you're doing a disservice to, one, the residents of that city who have to front this bill and basically is coming out of their taxes. But not only that, you're doing a disservice to the people who are immigrating to America because they're not getting a very good experience. They're basically being thrown into either homeless shelters or hotels and being stayed there, and they're just basically floating, essentially. So there's no real plan to get them integrated into America, right? You can't just have mass immigration without having integration. And that's for any country, my personal opinion. If you're going to immigrate to a new country, you have to conform to the societal rules and basically be the behavior of that society, essentially. So you can't just go somewhere and try to bring your country that you immigrated from to this new country. You've left that country for a reason, right? I always tell this, when it comes to immigration, my personal opinion, for immigrants, come one, come all. You can come to America. The American dream, immigration is built into America more so than any other country in the world. But if you immigrate to America, you better become American. That's my thing. If you come to America, you better become American. What I mean by that is you better conform to society's rules and regulations. You better start to act like an American. You better start to have American values. That's what I mean. Which I think that's not a hard ask. Like, that's not a hard ask whatsoever. And a lot of countries are forcing that kind of mindset into their immigrant populations. Like, Japan is widely known for this. In Japan, when you're in Japan, bro, you have to act like the Japanese. You have to act like the locals. If you don't do so, you get jailed. Denmark is doing this at a very controversial type of way right now, which they're telling there primarily because most of their immigrants are Muslim-based, who come from like Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. So they're saying to these people, yo, you better conform to Denmark's values. If not, you're getting the fuck out of here. Honestly, I think for the kind of the culture of the country and the culture of its people, I think that's 100% necessary. I'm 100% okay with that as well. I don't see an issue with that whatsoever. Because, you're coming to this new country. You have to conform to the new country, man. You can't bring the bullshit of your previous country into this new country and try to make it like your old country. And a lot of immigrants tend to do that. And again, like, I've come from technically immigrants. Like, we immigrated second generation into mainland United States. Yes, I'm Puerto Rican. We have citizenship, so it's a little different. But the culture in Puerto Rico and the culture in America are vastly different. Puerto Rico was true a Latin American, I can't necessarily say country because it's not technically its own country. It's still a sovereignty of the United States. But we predominantly speak Spanish there, and it definitely has a Latino mindset over there versus, it being a lot different culturally in the United States. But you have to conform. If you're going to move somewhere new, you have to conform to that society. Anyway, there was a big influx of people not necessarily doing that from that huge immigration population that came into the United States during the Biden administration. And I talked about this beforehand, man. And I said this multiple times on this podcast, even though we only have like 20 episodes. When it comes to rules and regulation in America, here is how it goes. One side, whether it be Republicans or Democrats, will go completely to their, basically their own value system or perceived value system. So in this case, I think most people are okay with immigration to a degree. Of course, there's variance between how much immigration is good, how much immigration is bad from person to person, but most people are not extremely anti-immigration, like no immigration at all. If you did a wide consensus into the American, population, I think most of it's going to be, are you generally just okay with immigration, just as a concept as a whole? And they would say yes. Most people would say yes. Of course, there's outliers, but I think most would say yes. So the Democrats went one way, and let's just let everyone in, right? Let's just fucking come on, come on, bring everyone, doesn't matter. And in turn, the Republicans went the entire other way, which is we're booting everyone. And not just everyone, but people who didn't necessarily cross the border during that timeline, but people who are illegal immigrants in America, or people who have visas, or even people who are citizens who got caught up in it all. Like, we're booting everyone, essentially. So the answer is always in the middle. It's always in the middle. It's never bring everyone in, no matter what your background is, what your criminal record is. And it's not boot everyone. Everyone get the fuck out. That's neither of them is the answer. The answer is in the middle. It's always in the middle, but neither side view it as such. And whenever there's a cultural topic such as this, one side is going to go one way, and to counterbalance it, the other side is going to go the exact other way, when in most people's minds, the answer is literally in the middle. But that's just how American politics and laws and legislation really is in this country, unfortunately. So yeah, basically the point of the matter is Biden let everyone fucking in, no matter criminal record, no matter what skill set or usefulness they currently have, or whatever the case may be. And it was straining the American public. A lot of people were against this. Even people who are pro-immigration were against this, because we're just like, yo, you can't let thousands of people in and just expect things to go well. It's not going to go well. There's going to be natural infighting between the original country's demographic and the immigrants. And a lot of that is because the immigrants are not conforming to the country's value system. And it's not going to happen overnight, to give, justification to, or try to, be devil's advocate on behalf of the immigrants. Like, to conform to a country's value set, it does not happen overnight. Typically, it takes several generations for the people who have immigrated to this country to finally, in this case, become American. Like, for instance, if someone immigrated from Mexico who is born and raised in Mexico, like they're in their 30s, in their 40s, they come to America, right? They have kids. Their kids would be more American. Their kids would be far more American, right, than they currently are as far as value system and that kind of stuff. Because one, they were entrenched in America. They were born and raised within the American system or the American country. So, of course, they're going to be able to speak perfect English. Technically, they're going to be citizens because we have birthright citizenship in this country. And they're going to act American. Like, as far as if you were to compare someone who is Latino but born and raised in America versus someone who's Latino but born and raised in Latin America, they're very different. And I'm speaking from experience here because I am Hispanic and I was born and raised in America. Like, even though I try to, stay true to my Hispanic heritage, at the end of the day, bro, if you put me in Puerto Rico with the natives, they're going to know right away that I'm a fucking New York-Rican. They will know right away I'm a New York-Rican. They're going to know right away, yo, you weren't born and raised here, so you don't understand the struggles that come with living on the island, essentially. And to take that out of context for other Latin American countries, like people who are, and listen, I've had multiple friends. I know a lot of people who are born and raised in, for example, Mexico or for other Latin American countries. And they look at Latinos who are born and raised in America as gringos. They don't look at them as, for instance, as someone who is born and raised in America, but ethnically they're Colombian. A Colombian who was born and raised in Colombia is going to look at that Colombian that was born and raised in America and say, yo, you're a gringo. Like, you're not Colombian. You don't know what it means to be Colombian. You haven't grown up in Colombia. You haven't grown up in and around the Colombian culture. Yes, you still have some of that through your family dynamic and maybe your community dynamic, depending on the community you live in, but you're not Colombian. Like, you're American, you're a gringo. That's their mindset. 100 one-on-one facts. Like, that's unarguable. So it takes a couple generations for these people to assimilate and become American. So as I said beforehand, the Mexican couple that comes over from Mexico and immigrates to America, they're basically Mexican. They were born and raised in Mexico. Their kids will be American. Their grandkids will be even more American because their parents are born and raised in America and has an American-based mindset, so they're going to be even more American. So it takes generations for people to assimilate into the culture. And this is not just for, Latin Americans coming into the United States. It was the same thing for motherfuckers in Ireland and Italy who came over during the 20th century to America and immigrated the exact same way, came through Ellis Islands, the exact same thing, man. When that demographic first came to America, they were predominantly Irish Italian. They acted Irish Italian. They spoke Italian or they spoke with an Irish accent. And that's just culturally who they were because they grew up in those regions and in those countries. But as time went by, generation after generation, they became more Americanized. When they first came into this country, they were discriminated against as well. Like, Italians were called wops, and I don't know what the fuck Irish people were called, probably drunkards. But with time, of course, they assimilated to American culture and value, and now their descendants are basically just American. Like, you can't really distinguish their descendants versus someone whose family has been in America for generations after generations after generations. You really can't tell the difference as far as like behavior and how they act, etc. So it's the same thing applies for them too. It's going to take time in order to do this, but when you immigrate a bunch of people in mass, you just make it harder to do so. Because you need to have a game plan how we're going to house these people and how we're going to bring them up to speed in America as far as like speaking the language, cultural values, etc. So to talk now about, because I went on a ramble there, and excuse me, I'm sorry about that. I want to give you guys as much context as possible as far as the immigration issue. Not talking about Trump's kind of like makeshift way in how to fix this issue, and it's that He's basically like, yo, we let too many people in here. We're going to boot everyone out. You know, his base basically wanted that. And at first, he fooled everyone, which his administration had been doing a lot of. He fooled everyone. At first, he was like, yo, we're going to boot out the criminals. That basically is the only people we're going to boot out. And I agree with that. Like, at first, I agreed with that. And I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Kamala. I didn't vote during the Trump and Biden race. I didn't vote for during the Trump and Clinton race. Because I don't want to fucking vote for a president that I don't like. Like, I don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils. It's bullshit. Like, if I don't believe in a candidate, I'm not voting, period. Like, you can call that for what it is. I'm not voting for a bullshit candidate that I don't believe in. Anyway. Yeah, Trump's base is like, yo, we're just going to boot out everyone. But at first, we're going to do the criminals, which I agree with. Like, if you fucking are an immigrant and you commit crime in this country and we welcome you with open arms, you got to go. Like, you shouldn't be allowed to be here because you don't know how to act. Like, you fucking came into this country and you're committing crimes. Like, get the fuck out of here. Go do that in your own country, you know? And it's the same thing if American goes to Japan. If American goes to Japan and fucking commits a crime in Japan, boot that motherfucker back to the U.S. Like, that's not your problem, you know? He's not a citizen of your country. Same thing for Mexico. If an American goes to Mexico and does a bunch of fucking crimes in Mexico, yo, extradite his ass to the U.S. Like, you don't have to deal with that bullshit. It's not your citizen. So I agreed with that. And again, not a Trump supporter by any means, but I agreed with that policy as far as booting criminals. But it just spiraled out of control. It went from booting criminals to just booting your everyday immigrant. You know, there's a lot of immigrants in this country that are not committing crimes. The majority of them do not commit crimes. The majority of immigrants, and again, I'm Hispanic, so I grew up around immigrants my entire life. A lot of them are scared to really do anything in America because they're scared of possibly being booted or whatever the case may be. So a lot of them don't commit crimes and try to be as much of a straight shooter as possible and pay their taxes, etc. So the crime within the immigrant demographic is a lot lower than people really think it is. And you can look at the statistics behind that as well. So they just started booting everyone, man. Even the person who didn't do anything wrong and has been in this country for years and pay their taxes, etc. They've started booting people who are trying to get their citizenship, like people who are in the courthouse trying to get their citizenship. They boot them. It's like, yo, this person's doing the right thing. This person is trying to become a citizen of the United States. Why are we booting them? Like, there's no point in fucking sending them back to their country when they've been here for years. They've been paying their taxes. They've been a good, member of society, and then try and become a citizen and you're booting them. Like, no, those are the exact people that we want to have here. They started booting, separating families and sending the mom away but keeping the kid here or whatever the case may be. So that they're dividing families in that regard, which is just going to keep that family now in perpetual poverty, essentially. There are speculations on, like, actual citizens being booted as well, and ICE trying to get rid of paperwork or trying to deny paperwork that people are showing, like green card status or visa holder status or citizenship status, etc. They're sending people to El Salvador, which, if you're not a citizen of El Salvador, why are you sending them to El Salvador? That I don't agree with. If you're a Mexican, a citizen in Mexico, you got to send them back to their native country of origin. Why are you sending them to another country? It doesn't make any fucking sense. So they're cracking down. They're bugging. Not only that, the fucking ISIS, they don't have any, basically they just run up in there, snatch people, and that's it. Which you have to have, marked vehicles, or if you don't have marked vehicles, you got to have, shit on you, like a badge or something along those lines that shows that you are a member of ICE. If not, you're just snatching people off the street and that's it, there's going to be people who are going to take advantage of that. And there's already have been cases of people taking advantage of that and trying to show themselves or portray themselves as ICE agents just to kidnap people. Like, you can't have unmarked vans and unmarked, ICE officers just taking people off the street, because you're going to lead to people trying to, show themselves as a potential ICE agent, and in reality, they're just fucking kidnapping people. Like, you can't have that either. So the whole way and how he's going about it, how his administration is going about it, is entirely off. It's wrong. And a lot of people agree with that. A lot of people who are, of course, liberal, but a lot of people who are conservative, who are leaning or leans libertarian, all disagree with that. They're all like, yo, this is bullshit. Like, yeah, deport the criminals, but you're deporting fucking innocent people at this point. Like, what's the point of this? Like, this is wrong. And it's not going to sit well with the average American. I think most Americans don't like how it's being gone about right now. Like, the only people who really like this are like people who are heavily into Trump, which I don't understand why you would be into Trump, because all he did was basically sell you false promises like every other politician. But that's immigration, right? So he's tripping with immigration. Clearly, he got to fix that shit. It's a fucking shit show. Next, we have his relationship with Israel. God. His relationship with Israel is terrible. What I mean by terrible, I mean that he basically just lets them have their way. Now, then again, listen, every president has kind of let Israel get their way a little bit, to some degree. Now, Biden was like, he would always say he's Israel's biggest supporter, so he'd let them get their way. Trump is obviously letting them get their way. Obama didn't do it as much. He did put some restrictions on Israel. Bush, I don't really remember. Clinton, I know for a fact, did not like Israel. I know that he did not like Netanyahu at all. That I know. But Trump, by far, is the most, like, pro-Israel president, which I thought was pretty shocking because, one, he ran on not being pro-Israel. You know, he ran on not having no more proxy wars or no more wars in the Middle East, which, you know, all things considered, shout out to Biden for getting us out of the Middle East. Yeah, it was a fucking shit show and it could have been done a lot better, but I'm happy that we fucking left and now we're right back in, man. And it's, you know, we've been in the Middle East my entire life. Literally my entire life. Since before I was born, the Gulf War, in the Gulf War, when we were basically fighting a proxy war. Like, we've been in the Middle East for the past 30, almost 40 years, man. It's tiring. It's so fucking tiring. Why are we there? That has nothing to do with us. Those motherfuckers are going to fight for the rest of eternity. Literally. They're always going to fight. There's always going to be conflicts in that region. It has nothing to do with me. I may look Arab as fuck. Not Arab. I have no ties to that region whatsoever. No ethnic ties, no nothing. Why is my tax dollars and American troops, American boys and girls, are fucking going to that region for what? It has nothing to do with us. Let them solve it. Who cares? Like, I don't care, man. If they're fighting, what's going on over there, I don't give a shit either way. I just don't want my tax dollars and Americans fucking dying over there for no apparent reason, for shit that has nothing to do with us, when our country is a fucking shithole. I was going to say a shithole or shit show. Basically, it's shit. The country is fucking garbage right now. We need to focus on us. You know, it's like, you know, just getting out in a relationship and you're trying to focus on you, trying to make yourself a better person, you're fucking reading, going to the gym and shit. That's what America needs to do right now. We don't need to be dating around and fucking in the Middle East, you know. We just got broken up with. We need to fucking lock in and make ourselves better and trying to figure out why we got dumped. That's what America needs to do right now, man. Seriously. Last thing we need is to be fighting these fucking proxy wars. But Trump is just letting them do whatever they want, essentially. You know? And yes, Biden did do that too. Don't get me wrong. He did do it. He also did it for Ukraine for the most part as well. So he is no saint. But Trump ran on no war, man. Trump ran on, we're not doing wars in the Middle East anymore. We're getting away with that. And now here he is basically almost getting us into fucking World War III with Iran. Like, it's ridiculous, man. Like, the things that Israel can kind of get away with is insane, dude. And again, like, I don't care. Like, when it comes to that region, what happens in that region for either country, Israel or Iran or fucking Palestine for that matter, I don't give a shit. I'm going to be honest. I don't care. I just don't want to be involved in it. As an American, I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to be involved in anyone's conflicts. Same thing in Ukraine and Russia. I don't give a fuck. Let them fight. Let fucking Russia take it over. I don't care. I care about what's happening in America, and I care about what's happening with Americans, period. The rest of the world can go fuck themselves, essentially. I don't give a fuck. So the fact that we're literally right about to get into another war, which, you know, the war hawks have been trying to get a war with Iran for the last 2 decades, essentially. Israel goes and fucking bombs Iran, and Iran, in retaliation, starts bombing Israel. We get a peace treaty done. Before the peace treaty, we bombed their fucking nuclear site. Here's the thing about the nuclear site, right? So there's a difference between having nuclear energy and making nuclear warheads, right? A lot of people think it's the same thing because it's nuclear, but it's not. I'm by no means a fucking physicist. I barely know what the fuck I'm talking about. I just watch videos on this shit. But basically, like, there's a percentage as far as how close they are to getting an atomic bomb or nuclear bomb, excuse me. And they're like at 50 to 60%, right? 50 to 60%, basically almost there to make a nuclear warhead, right? A lot of people think that's really close. It's not really that close. There's a lot of things that needs to be done to get to that 100% to make a nuclear warhead that they did not have the capabilities for. Essentially, they had nuclear energy programs. So basically, they had like fucking what we have in West Point, you know, in New York. You know, they had nuclear energy, but they had no means of capability to make a nuclear warhead, right? And they stated multiple times that they don't want to make a nuclear warhead. And a lot of countries have nuclear programs, but don't have nuclear warheads. Because again, like, there's a lot of steps that need to go into it in order for you to create or make a nuclear warhead from just having general nuclear energy. It's not necessarily that easy. It's actually pretty difficult, even for country standards. And they just, from all accounts, from what I've seen, again, from my research, had just a nuclear program and did not have a nuclear warhead. It was not trying to gear towards a nuclear warhead. But Israel wants to get rid of Iran. They want regime change because, you know, Iran is very critical of Israel, which I get it. You know, being in the same region as them and have to deal with all that shit for the past couple of decades is just fucking tired of everything. So, and of course, like, you know, there's a difference in religion there, of course, and that's been playing a role in that region for literally forever. That goes for every single major religion out there, at least the you know, the Judeo Christian, you know, religions like Christianity, Islam, and fucking Judaism. They've been infighting within that region for thousands of years, and they continue to infight in that region for thousands of years. But to go back into the conflicts between Israel and Iran, basically we fucking bombed their nuclear facilities. Apparently it didn't work from what I've seen. Like, they still can recover from it, so it's not completely destroyed. But after that, we made a peace treaty. We're like, yo, ceasefire. Like, we're done here. America, as far as American standpoint, that's all we wanted to do. We don't want any more beef. Let's just call it for what it is. Just have a ceasefire. Both parties agreed. Then Israel strikes Iran literally like hours later, after we told them specifically not to do that. Trump was pissed about it, which I found hilarious. He even said, like, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, etc. I found it fucking funny. But, bro, they're just having their way with us, man. We're just letting them do whatever they want, essentially. And I am, for one, 100% tired of it. And I think every American, for the exception of small pockets of boomers, Christian boomers, are tired of it as well, man. And I just want to be done with that region altogether entirely. I want nothing to do with it whatsoever. I just want to focus on America. It's another way that Trump is bugging. Granted, you know, the president before him was bugging within that region, that conflict too, but they're fucking having their way with Trump, essentially. Now we have not releasing the Epstein files, which, yeah, so his presidency, and especially like a lot of people he elected into office, like Kash Patels and some of those other people who are, you know, within the intelligence agencies, their biggest thing coming into the office was, yo, we're going to release these Epstein files. You know, Epstein files are going to be released. People are going to know the names on the list. People are going to know who are the perpetrators, who are the people who are doing things with these minors and stuff. Like, we're going to release the files. They ran heavy on that. Heavy on that, man. So we get basically from the first couple months of his presidency, they gave binders to influencers and they're going around waving it around inside the White House. We see what's inside of those binders and literally everything is redacted. As far as what being redacted is, essentially when it comes to like any governmental documentation, there's aspects of the documentation that can be redacted. So what that shows or what it looks like basically is like the entire sentence is blacked out. And when there was pictures of the binder and what was shown within those files that they were releasing, I'm not kidding you, everything's blacked out. Every single thing in that binder is completely blacked out. like this probably like the word "the" wasn't the only thing blacked out. Like everything was blacked out, man, completely. And people shitted on it. People called it a shit show. People were like, "Yo, what the fuck is this? Like, why even release this at all? You're not releasing anything. Like, there's nothing to see here. Quite literally nothing to see. Everything is blacked out. Like, this is a joke. You know, like you guys are showing this off like it's some kind of victory or something, but it's literally all blacked out. Like, they can't fucking read anything. Literally, can't fucking read anything. Can't make sense of anything. So, when it comes to the I don't want to go too deep into Epstein and explain all the context behind Epstein and all that kind of stuff. Essentially, I think if you're an American, you know, or even you're familiar with like fucking the American politics and stuff, you're pretty familiar with Epstein and the shit that he did, so I'm not going to get into that. But basically, there was a big issue as far as like Epstein allegedly being murdered or if it was suicide. The narrative was it was a suicide. There was a coroner who looked at Epstein and you know, and said that there's no way that a suicide could have choked or broken like his windpipe or something like that. It had to have been murder. Like that is kind of like from what he's seen from his 20-30 years of being a coroner, like that's like synonymous of like basically being choked to death or whatever. So it was a big everyone was debating as far as like if he was murdered, if it was suicide. They said for literally years, that basically the detention center or prison or fucking jail, whatever that he was being housed in, the camera went out. So basically the cameras completely went out. There's no video footage. And now all of a sudden there's video footage. So for years they were saying there was no video footage. Now there is video footage of like no one going in and out essentially when he committed suicide. So that was weird. They were saying it's 100% a suicide, that he was not murdered at all. And Castro tells on Joe Rogan just like, yo, it's a suicide. He was not murdered. We have video footage. You know, Joe Rogan kind of questioned him on, you know, you guys said that there wasn't any video footage. You guys said that, like, have you seen the coroner reports saying that it was probably, like, this is, like, the kind of injuries are synonymous with murder? He's like, I didn't see any of that, which is like, yo, you're the head of the FBI, and this is, like, one of your biggest things that you ran on. How don't you know this information? You're full of shit. Anyway, then it just came out yesterday, quite literally yesterday, that there is no Epstein list, right? And the Epstein list was something that the FBI and people who are, you know, knee deep into the whole, you know, Epstein conspiracy were stating that there is a list of perpetrators. There is a list of people, or Epstein had a list of people who done these terrible things to the minors, essentially. So there's a list, a running list, a documented list of basically who, where, when, as far as the acts that were done with, you know, some of the most famous and influential and powerful people, not just in America, but in the world, essentially. So they were saying there was a list. The people who are in the intelligence agency said there was a list. They said it on multiple occasions that there was a list. People who are really big in this conspiracy said it was a list. Basically, as far as it being refuted as there not being a list, or it being speculated that there wasn't a list, or if there was a list, that was not within the ethosphere within, the kind of Epstein conspiracy, because you had people within intelligence agencies saying there was a list, high-ranking people in intelligence agencies saying there was a list, people who followed the conspiracy saying there was a list. Like, that was not up for question, essentially. Like, everyone kind of knew there was a list. And even so, like, people are arguing that Epstein was part of the intelligence agency, whether it be American or Israeli, that he was part of some kind of agency. And of course, like, basically he was doing this to blackmail these individuals. So of course you're going to have some kind of written documentation, some kind of list or file or something, right? They pulled, tapes and documents and everything out of his fucking house or, mansions when they raided it. So, like, of course, there's going to be some kind of documented list, or whether it be the videotapes or literally written down or digital, whatever. And basically, the FBI came out today, or, Castro's Hill and everyone came out today and was just like, yo, there is no list. Like, there's no list. We don't have a list of perpetrators who done these things to minors. And it's like, yo, you're so full of shit, bro. Like, who are you trying to fool, man? Like, we're not dumb, There's a lot of Americans who are dumb, but consensually, we're not dumb, We don't believe you. There's no way that this person who basically was allowed to do these things for years, for literally decades, who knew some of the most powerful people in America, not just in America, but also in the world, had his own island where shit was going down in, like, as a known, pedo and all that shit. Like, there's no way that there wasn't a list. And especially because you stated that there was a list. Multiple members stated that there was a list. There's no way. Like, you're telling me there's no documented acts, that he was just doing it for the love of the game? You're full of shit, man. Like, no one believes it. No one believes it. And that's another way how Trump's tripping. And again, that's not necessarily his fault, but it is his administration. He did elect these officials, and clearly they're compromised. It's obvious they're compromised. And not to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but like, yo, to say that he was murdered, to say that it was a suicide, now we have the videotape documentation, now there isn't the list. Like, then who was doing the acts? Just him? So of all the people who was bringing to the island and everything else, like, it was just him doing these things. No one knew anything. There was no list. Like, he was just doing it for the love of the game. He was just doing it because he wanted to do it. Like, it's bullshit, man. Like, we all know it's bullshit. I don't know how they're compromised. I don't know who compromised them, but they're compromised. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's obvious, because if there is a list, I think there is a list. The list has a lot of powerful names, whether it be through American government, through other governments, celebrities, etc., that if that list got out, a lot of people would be implicated. And of course, they're not going to release that list. It's obvious they're not going to release that list, not this administration whatsoever. And I don't think any administration moving forward is going to release that list. I think this shit is going to unfortunately stay like this for forever, which is a shame and is fucking disgusting, because the one thing that angers everyone is when stuff is done to minors. No one likes that. No one stands for that. Everyone is against that. Literally every single person, no matter who you are, no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, libertarian, doesn't fucking immigrant, American, everyone is against that. Universally, everyone is against that. So, of course, they're going to hide that if some of the most powerful people in America could be implicated in those crimes. So, again, not necessarily Trump, but it is his administration. And it's a goddamn shame, man, because a lot of these people were talking on their high horse before being elected into these positions, saying they're going to release the list, they're going to release the files, and not a goddamn thing has been done, and not a goddamn thing will be done, unfortunately. So basically the moral of the story is you can do anything in America as long as you have money and power. You can literally do the most heinous acts you can fucking think of and get away with it. That's basically the moral of the story. Last but not least, we have tariffs. Now, I did have to do my research on the whole tariff thing because I'm not a financial expert. I don't fucking barely know what a tariff is, but I know that he was bugging. So basically, when it comes to tariff, here was the goal. Here was the concept behind tariffs, essentially. So Trump wanted to reduce the U.S. trade deficit and bring back manufacturing jobs and making foreign goods more expensive, especially from China. Hear that last part, especially from China. So basically, the how of it all was that he was going to place tariffs, which are extra taxes on imported goods, mostly, again, from China. For example, Chinese-made product might cost 25% more to U.S. buyers because of the tariff. So there's a trade deficit. So basically, we were buying more of their goods than they were buying our goods. We were like, yo, this is kind of fucked up. This is kind of bullshit. Like, it should be reciprocal. So we put tariffs on their imported good, which is extra taxes on their imported goods. So if anyone who in America buys it, they get taxed more, essentially, which will incentivize people buying more American goods. That was the whole point of tariffs. He primarily wanted to do that with China because China is economically our biggest rival, right? And had the biggest trade deficit, essentially. We're buying all their shit. They weren't really buying our shit. But he put tariffs on the world, right? He put tariffs on everyone, And he did that at first because he didn't want it to show that he's going into a trade war specifically with China. He wanted to show that, hey, we're just, we just want even trade with every country. So I guess that was a good move in the beginning. But he then bugged out because he started to change the tariffs on everything on a daily basis. So, and I apologize for the visual here as far as like the lights constantly going in and out and stuff. Like as far as where my apartment's position in my apartment complex, like it's not necessarily forward facing from the sun, especially my living room. So like when there's a shade or cloud that comes overhead, it gets darker. When the cloud goes away, it gets brighter. So I'm going to start to fix that. I'm going to put more lights on throughout the house when I am recording so that this doesn't become like a normal thing. So I apologize for that if anyone who's watching the video is getting annoyed with like the constant dark to light happening in my apartment. Basically, he wanted to put tariffs on the world, but for the most part, he wanted to really get into that trade war with China, right? So the idea, if foreign goods are more expensive, then Americans would buy more U.S.-made products, which U.S.-made products are always fucking ass. U.S. companies might bring factories back to America. If U.S. companies start to bring factories to America, one is going to take years of infrastructure development to bring those factories to America. Not only that, Trump is very anti-union, so if he were to bring those factories back to America, one, they're probably just going to make immigrants work in those factories or have really, really low wages to make it unappealing for any American to work in those factories. And then it will punish China for unfair trade practices, which I respect that one. How it backfired, right? So the cost went up for Americans. Tariffs are paid for importers, usually American businesses, not foreign countries. This meant higher prices in the U.S. Companies and consumers, especially for things like electronics, machinery, and farming equipment. So farmers specifically in the whole trade war got hurt the most as far as like demographic wise, but there was a lot of companies that were fucking getting hit with those prices. And again, prices were fluctuating every single day during the height of like, the whole trade war and fucking tariff fiasco. So one day you can be tariffed 20%, the next day you can be tariffed 60%. And people were reluctant to buy or import these products because they don't know what's happening. And again, they're fronting the cost of this. Yes, they can put that cost back into the consumer, but the consumer still has to buy it. That's how companies work. That's how businesses work, especially small businesses. So just say I can import, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example here, but just say I'm like an electronics company, right? And I can import TV for $500, but with the tariffs, 50% tariffs, I'm gonna have to put the cost at $1,000 or $1,200 to get an extra profit for the consumer. So I have to front that cost at first because I'm the business. So I have to pay that tariff and then I have to sell that product. If that product doesn't sell, I'm out of money because of that tariff. And a lot of companies were starting to basically like lose business and even go under because of the fluctuations in tariff, and there was no fucking game plan behind it. So farmers got hurt the most, as I said before, and China hit back with its own tariffs on U.S. goods like soybeans, for example. Farmers lost a key market and needed billions in government aid to stay afloat. So manufacturing didn't boom. Obvious one there. Some companies moved production, but not many came back to the U.S., unfortunately. They moved to other cheaper labor countries like Vietnam and or Mexico. So they just found basically cheaper countries besides China to make their shit. Global supply chains got messed up. So companies rely on parts from around the world. Tariffs made this more expensive and complicated. No major deal with China. Trump claimed a phase one trade deal, but it didn't fix key issues, and China didn't buy as much as promised. So it was ultimately for nothing. So basically, in summary, Trump's tariffs were meant to protect American industry and punish China, but in practice, when it was implemented, Americans paid higher prices, farmers suffered, manufacturing gains were small, global tensions 100% rose, and trade deficits didn't shrink much. It was a bold move, don't get me wrong, but the costs often outweighed the benefits. And that is the whole tariff fiasco dummy down. So it was a huge miss. I'm not against tariffs, to be honest with you. I think tariffs are a good way to bring manufacturing back into America to make trade more balanced, but how he went about it was the biggest issue. He just implemented these wide tariffs across the board. A lot of the times, he was hitting countries with tariffs that were outlandish in number. I think Vietnam got like a 60% tariff or something crazy like that. There was just no game plan involved, man. When it comes to tariffs, especially global tariffs in every single country, you need to have a game plan. You need to have financial experts just looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb to really determine, okay, how can we get every country to basically back to the drawing board and negotiate tariffs and their own tariffs on us and that kind of stuff. But there was just no game plan, man. He just did it on the whim. He honestly thought that he was going to big dick the world, essentially. He was like, yo, we're America. We got the fucking fattest cock in the world, and we're just going to, you're going to do whatever we say because we're America. And that was not the case. And again, he was primarily targeting China, but he thought his tip was fat, man. He thought he had the mushroom tip, and China just pulled out a tip the size of a fucking beach umbrella and show them, who the real economic giant is, essentially. But yeah, tariffs were a blunder. It was a shit show. It was 100% confusing. I wouldn't have understood it before doing this research that I just did. And again, like his presidency, it's only been a year so far, not even a year, but it's just going down the drain, man. And I'm not excited for the next 3 years. I have to be entirely honest with you. I haven't even touched the big, beautiful bill, but listen, I'll do his first year wrap up when the year is concluded, but dude, his presidency has been garbage, and I think everyone kind of felt like it was not going to be great coming into it. But yeah, thank God within the current American legislature, he cannot run again for a third term. Hopefully it does not get overturned, but thankfully, as it stands right now, he cannot run again. And we're going to have someone new. We don't know who, but hopefully it's someone who is a populist and not a fucking neocon. But yeah, that is this episode. Is Trump tripping? The answer is yes, and I hope you guys tune in next week. Bye.